The days of affordable hardware are unfortunately beyond us. So today, we are traveling back in time 8 years ago to assemble this top-of-the-line budget rig at a fraction of its original cost. But does that mean a fraction of the performance in today's world? We picked up all of this hardware secondhand for only $584. But I really want to use this brand new case, which cost me $160. And because the GPU comes pre-blocked, we are going to water cool the build, which cost me $130. So the total for this build is $744. But if you swap out the case and you remove the water cooling gear, you could replicate this for under $500. Now, we just finished Amelia's new setup, and to match, I picked up this Dust Silver D66 wireless 65% keyboard. This is called Peach Oolong. It is fully customizable as well as loads of different themes. There's built-in RGB backlighting as well as your choice of switches. We went with the Gatron Black. Those switches are built with the best strength and actuation, perfect for when Amelia rages in her games. And you can even add in extra custom switches or even cables. Speaking of keys, they are hot swappable. You can change the shaft to customize the keyboard to your liking. We even have supporting legs with 2 slopes. We also have 3 types of connections. You can get wireless, Bluetooth, or even wired USB Type-C. We have full support for Windows, Mac iOS, and Android. Now listen to that sweet, sweet sound as I go to type in code IFR for 20% off. So with free shipping worldwide, 4.9 stars. If you'd like to learn more, I'll leave a link down below. Now this is the Gigabyte Z370N Wi-Fi motherboard. So as the name suggests, we have built-in Wi-Fi. This motherboard was actually released back in 2017. So this one is actually just over 7 years old, and it says it supports 8th gen processors. I don't have an 8th gen processor, but I know that 9th gen can work in it, but I'm worried that it requires a BIOS upgrade, and unfortunately, I don't actually have any 8th gen processors to actually update the BIOS, so I may run into some issues later on. I don't know if someone has an 8th gen processor that I can borrow, so we'll see how this pans out. It has plenty of USBs to do what I need it to do, and it's also got support for 2 Gen 3 NVMe drives. I'm just gonna put 1 in. Now, while the motherboard is 7 years old, this CPU is actually 6 years old because the motherboard was released with the 8000 series CPUs. So with this being the update of that, the 9th gen, as I said, I am worried about the BIOS being out of date, but the 9700K is a little gem CPU. So I'm interested to see how it performs in today's modern games. That's if we can get the PC booted at all. Now, being a Gen 3 NVMe compatible motherboard, I did want to go for a Gen 3 NVMe drive, try and get the fastest speed of storage that I can in the system while giving us enough storage to actually have a few games installed. So I've got 1 terabyte of the Western Digital Blue SN550. Now the read and write is 2400 megabytes per second, and I only got this for 70 Australian dollars. So I consider that pretty good deal. It's not the best deal out there that I could have got, but it was the cheapest one that I could find at the time, and so far we're still coming in well under budget. Let's just hope that everything works. Now, I picked up this CPU block. This is the Pacific W9, also the Radiator, which is a 360, and I also got the pump res combo, all for 200 Australian dollars, which converts to 130 US dollars. So that was a really good deal. Now, if you don't want to include the water cooling and you wanted to follow this build, you could definitely get everything for under $500 if you do your research. Now, this is a full copper block with a plexi top, so I will be able to see the liquid cooling inside. I was kind of forced to go with water cooling because the Seahawk that I bought was a deal that I really couldn't pass up on, and it kind of forced me to go that route because it doesn't have a stock cooler, it comes pre-blocked. So this CPU block is quite an interesting one. I've actually found multiple stress cracks all around the outside of this framing that is screwed to the acrylic block. So what that suggests is that the framing is actually done up too tight. It's putting stress all around the acrylic and it's creating those stress cracks. Now, these stress cracks look to be just surface cracks. They're not going all the way through the acrylic, and it's pretty uncommon to see them around here. Usually they're actually where the fittings screw in. So I'm glad they're not there. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna loosen this framing on here. It's just cosmetic so that we can relieve a bit of pressure on that acrylic and this block can function as normal. So for our RAM, we do have the Tough RAM RGB from Thermaltake, much like the rest of our system. A lot of Thermaltake stuff. I just found great deals on these. Now, this actually came with the CPU, as I said. We actually got these for $70 in the deal, so that's actually really good. And I've just noticed that these haven't even been opened, so these are actually brand new, which is absolutely fantastic. I wonder why the previous owner didn't actually use them though, maybe an unused gift or something like that. But it's DDR4, 4600 megahertz, not bad speeds, 16 gigabytes total. So I'll be interested to see if this works with the rest of the system. CL19 timing, so it is a little slower, but hopefully the speed makes up for that timing loss. But 70 bucks, that's actually pretty good for 16 gigabytes of DDR4 unopened. Guys, when I saw this case, I couldn't really look past it, and today was the perfect opportunity for me to actually put this case to the test. Now, I know that we have gone for used parts and we're trying to do this on a budget. And as I said in the intro, if you guys don't want to spend 250 Australian dollars on a case, I would actually recommend setting aside like 50 bucks, going to get yourself a $50 case. That way you can put the rest of the money towards other hardware and you can actually buy all of our secondhand parts for less than 500 US dollars. Now, this is the Tower 300 Matcha Green Edition. And for some reason, I get Halo vibes all over from this. Kind of makes me want to customize it. The green, it's not the perfect Halo green, but I just can't get it out of my head for some reason. Now, inside of this, we can fit a 360mm radiator, so we are going to have plenty of cooling to go with our Seahawk 1080 graphics card and our 9700K. And I can only fit a micro ATX or an ITX motherboard inside, so the space is going to be very tight, but we're going to try and utilize as much of the room as possible to make sure we can fit our custom water cooling loop inside. Very excited about this one. Now, for the fans, you can actually get some really good deals on fans. I actually decided to reuse some that I already had, so you can go ahead and save yourself a lot of money there. These particular ones, they retail for 125 Australian dollars, so I did add that to the total. And these are the Swafan XE12 RGB fans. Now, you could easily pick up a set of fans for 50 bucks. They'll perform really well. So you can save yourself some money there and put it towards something like a better GPU if you wanted to, or just buy a cheaper PC overall. But with the Swaf fans, there's only one cable coming out of them controlling the lighting and the power. And I really love that about these, especially for such a compact system. So that is why I chose to go with these. Now, this radiator was part of the 3 set that I got from Facebook Marketplace. This is the C360 Thermaltake radiator. It's a full copper radiator, 17 FPI as well. So we don't necessarily need high static pressure fans. And it is 27mm thick, which I think is pretty much the maximum that we can really go with in this build, because it's really designed for a 360 AIO cooler and fans to be installed, and there's not a lot of room to play with inside, so going with a thinner radiator is going to be our best option. Now, being that it came with a set of 3, we can pretty much just divide 200 by 3 and just assume that we got this for around 66 Australian dollars, which is a fantastic deal for one of these. These usually go for over 100. Look, honestly guys, apart from the little bit of wear and tear, I can't see anything on the inside there. So that indicates to me that they've done a good job cleaning out the water cooling. But I am still gonna run a system prep just to remove any contaminants, just in case. And on the backside, I did notice a little bit of the fins, they are dinged in. It's not gonna affect the performance or anything like that of the radiator. It's not broken because the water cooling channels, which actually hold the liquid, they're all intact. So I think we've done really well with scoring this radiator. And we have the GPU, the thing that's gonna give us those good gaming pixels, released all the way in 2016, again, 8 years ago. This is the GeForce GTX, I almost said RTX, GTX 1080 Seahawk from MSI. Now, as I stated before, this GPU came pre-blocked, so we were kind of forced into water cooling. I don't have a stock cooler for it or anything like that. And to be honest, I was actually pretty excited about that because, you know, we love our water cooling, even though water cooling this type of build doesn't really make a lot of sense. But the good thing is you guys can pick up a regular GTX 1080 if you find one on a good deal with a stock cooler, and you don't have to worry about the water cooling and get it for dirt cheap. Now, this particular GPU was one of the top back in the day. Of course, the 1080 Ti was above that, but we have 8 gigabytes of GDDR5X memory. Wow, that brings me back. I did have one of these back in the day, and it was a solid little card, and we got some cool overclocks with it. So I'm excited to see how it performs in today's games. Well, here it is, our GTX 1080. On first observations, as soon as we pulled it out of the box, I did notice the nickel plating had been stripped off up the top here, revealing the copper underneath. Now, that is not going to hurt the card in any way. That is just from long-term use. And the reason why they use nickel plating on copper is because nickel and copper are very close on the galvanic corrosion scale. So they don't actually react too much with each other to speed up the corrosion process. And that is why this will be totally safe to use. Now, I noticed we have some stress cracks as well up the top here where fittings have previously been. They're only on the surface, so this block is still going to be safe to use, but I'm obviously going to keep an eye on it because I don't want anything to happen over time. This is our third piece of the puzzle, the Pacific PR15 D5 pump res combo. Yes, that is a D5. Again, part of that triple set that we got for $200. So we can assume that this was 66 Australian dollars. Not a bad deal for a D5 pump res combo. Now, I just need to make sure that I can fit it in this build because there's limited ways of mounting this. I know we do have a fan slot down below, so I'm most likely going to be mounting it there, but it is going to block a little bit of the motherboard. It's not too bad, as long as the PC still works and looks good and is functional. That's all I care about at this point because we're getting some fantastic deals on this secondhand hardware. Now, this power supply is also a 2016 release. This is the SFX Tough Power 600 watt power supply. Now, we are going with 600 watts because the recommended minimum for a GTX 1080 is actually 500 watts, so a little bit more headroom there. Makes me feel a little safer with everything that's going into the system. And because it is SFX, we are saving a little bit of room inside of our small case as well, even though it can fit a regular size power supply inside. Now, I actually found this power supply for 100 Australian dollars, so I think that's a pretty good score. Hey guys, just a small update with a little bit of a mistake on my end that I just completely forgot about. I don't know, I just wasn't thinking at the time, but the memory that we bought is actually too fast for this CPU. I believe the max speed you can use with this CPU is 2,666 megahertz. So I don't know if you guys have been noticing, but this PC has been turning on and off. So we are going to have to swap the RAM, but apart from that, everything else is working just as planned. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1440p, we're achieving around 83 FPS with a GPU temperature of 57 degrees and a CPU temperature of 56 degrees. Control, high settings, 1080p, we were achieving 60 FPS with the GPU temperature of 53 degrees and CPU temperature of 52 degrees. Not bad for an 8-year-old GPU with such high demand for graphics. Doom Eternal 1440p Ultra Nightmare, we were achieving an average of 100 FPS with the GPU temperature of 59 degrees and a CPU temperature of 54 degrees. And our last game, Star Wars Jedi The Fallen Order 1440p Epic settings, we're achieving an average of 80 FPS with the GPU temperature of 60 degrees and a CPU temperature of 54. And now for the final B-roll.